deep oceans of our world are filled with countless oddities and mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Thanks to divers, these underwater curiosities are being brought to light for all of us on land to see. From solving missing person cases to encountering a terrifying necrowhale, here are the 20 strangest things ever found by deep-sea divers. Number 20. Solved 7-year-old missing person case. Ethan Kazmierzak's 2006 Volkswagen was discovered in a pond northwest of Hampton on October 26, 2020. On September 15, 2013, Ethan Kazmierzak, 22, was reported missing to the Hampton Police Department in Hampton, Iowa. On September 14th, Kazmierzak was spotted in several local bars. He was last seen at a party held behind a house in the 1400 block of 190th Street near a gravel pit pond. Kazmierzak's mobile phone was last used at about 12:30 a.m. on September 15th at the junction of 190th Street and Olive Avenue, according to police, and his ATM card had not been used since September 14th. A diving crew located Ethan Kazmierzak's 2006 Volkswagen Jetta TDI in a body of water northwest of Hampton on October 26, 2020. Authorities stated that human remains were found inside the car. Hours after Franklin County Sheriff Aaron Dodd's press announcement, Sheriff Dodd later verified that the remains had been identified as those of Kazmierzak by the Iowa State Medical Examiner's Office. Dodd told the Des Moines Register in an article dated November 5, 2020, that many factors pointed to Kazmierzak being in the car. Dodd refused to state how the car and Kazmierzak ended up in the water or whether criminal activity is suspected. When the medical examiner's office completes its investigation and Dodd's office receives the final report on the case, that information will be disclosed, he told the Register. Number 19. U.S. Grayback submarine missing for 75 years found off Japan. According to the expedition team, investigators uncovered a 75-year-old mistake in the location of a missing World War II submarine off the coast of Japan. The USS Grayback sank in the East China Sea in February 1944 after being attacked by Japanese troops while on a mission. The submarine sank 21,594 tons of commerce on its final voyage alone, according to the Navy, and it is credited with destroying 14 ships totaling 63,835 tons. In June, ocean researcher Tim Taylor and his crew discovered the Grayback around 1,400 feet below the surface southwest of Okinawa as part of the Missing 52 project, which attempts to recover lost U.S. World War II submarines. According to Taylor's organization, the Navy recently verified the team's findings. Taylor hired Yutaka Iwasaki, a systems engineer who reviewed the original Japanese military records and determined that the Navy's translation of the locations was incorrect. Taylor explained that it was off by one digit, which changed the location by more than 100 miles. The crew employed underwater drones and modern imaging equipment to help in the mission in addition to the new coordinate. However, locating the sub proved difficult, and the crew was on the verge of giving up. "It was amazing," Taylor said in a statement. "The team had resigned to the fact that we were heading back to port and would not complete the total search area this year. A drone experienced a technical problem, and the team only had a few minutes to analyze the data." Number 18. Corsair F-4U-4 discovered. During World War II, this Vought F-4U Corsair warplane crashed in 1945 after supposedly running out of fuel. The abandoned wreck may now be found off Oahu's southeast shore, about 3 miles from the Hawaii Kai Marina. The wreck is roughly 110 feet below sea level and can only be reached by boat, with experienced divers given access to the aquatic location. The Vought F-4U Corsair was a Navy and Marine combat plane with curved wings that made a distinctive sound when flying. It measured 33 feet in length and over 16 feet in height. The plane was sent to Oahu and deployed to several agencies, including the USMC MAW-1 and MAG-12. Lieutenant W.H. Holden flew this jet on a routine training flight from Oahu's Molokai Field to Ava Field one day. The plane began sputtering about 20 minutes after taking off, possibly due to a fuel shortage or another issue. Fortunately, the pilot was able to guide the plane to a safe sea landing before the engine failed. The plane, however, was unable to stay afloat and began to sink. The pilot was fortunate in that he did not perish with the plane. His life jacket rescued him, and Lieutenant Holden was recovered later with just a small scratch on the top of his right eye as proof of his ordeal. The plane is mostly undamaged, but the water is gradually claiming it as its own. Number 17. The ruins of the ancient Roman city of Baiae. Baiae was a Roman town on the northwest coast of the Gulf of Naples, which is today part of the commune of Baiae. It was a famous resort for decades in antiquity, especially toward the end of the Roman Republic when affluent Romans erected villas here from 100 BC to AD 500. Considered superior to Capri, Pompeii, and Herculaneum, it was known for its hedonistic pleasures and the rumors of corruption and scandal that accompanied them. Due to nearby volcanic and seismic activity that elevated or lowered the ground, the lower half of the town was subsequently buried in the sea. Modern underwater archaeology has uncovered many of the beautiful buildings, now conserved in the submerged archaeological park. The Parco Archeologico della Terme di Baiae contains several remarkable structures from the upper town. Baiae was named after Bias, the helmsman of Odysseus's ship in Homer's Odyssey, who claimed to be buried there. Baiae was erected amid the Phlegraean Fields, an active volcanic region on the Cumaean Peninsula. At one time, Baiae was very popular during the end of the Roman Republic. It was visited by Marius, Lucullus, and Pompey. Baiae was known for its people's and visitors' hedonistic lifestyles. The trial of Marcus Caelius Rufus in 56 BC became infamous, as the renowned socialite Clodia was accused of living as a harlot in Rome and engaging in beach parties and extended drinking sessions at the crowded resort of Baiae. Sounds like a great place to have a good time. Anyone up for a Roman spring break? Number 16. USS Oriskany. The USS Oriskany, often known as mythical, was one of the few Essex-class aircraft carriers built for the U.S. Navy following World War II. The Battle of Oriskany took place during the Revolutionary War, and the ship was named in its honor. The history of the Oriskany is somewhat different from that of her sisters. Her construction was halted in 1946 when she was planned as a long-hulled Essex-class ship. After being converted to an upgraded design known as SCB-27, she was commissioned in 1950 and served as the model for the modernization of 14 additional Essex-class ships. The Essex-class ship Oriskany was the last to be constructed. She served mostly in the Pacific until the 1970s, collecting 2 battle stars for Korean War duty and 10 for Vietnam War service. When a magnesium flare was inadvertently lit aboard the Oriskany in 1966, one of the biggest naval disasters since World War II occurred. 44 sailors died in the fire. The post-service history of the Oriskany differs significantly from those of her sister ships. She was decommissioned in 1976 and sold for scrap in 1995, but she was repossessed in 1997 when no action was taken. In 2004, plans were made to sink her off the coast of Florida in the Gulf of Mexico as an artificial reef. She was gently sunk in May 2006, resting in an upright posture at a depth accessible to recreational divers after extensive environmental evaluation and cleanup to eliminate hazardous chemicals. As of 2008, the Oriskany was the biggest ship ever sunk for the purpose of creating a reef. Now it's time for today's topic. A team of deep-sea divers exploring the uncharted depths near the Mariana Trench recently made a shocking discovery that has left scientists and enthusiasts divided. Illuminated by the faint glow of their underwater lights, they stumbled upon the massive skeletal remains of an unknown creature lying eerily on the ocean floor. Initial inspections ruled out the possibility of it being a normal whale skeleton due to its peculiar structure. The elongated spine and bizarre rib formation hint at a species that has never been documented before. Some experts are already speculating that this might be the first physical evidence of the legendary Necrowhale, a creature of marine folklore rumored to lurk in the deepest parts of the ocean, feeding on the remains of other deep-sea giants. However, not everyone is convinced. Critics argue that the skeleton could belong to an undiscovered species of whale, or even a distorted remnant caused by underwater conditions. Others go so far as to suggest it could be a hoax, planted to stir up intrigue and attention. The discovery has sparked a heated debate within the scientific community. More evidence and detailed studies are needed, but one thing is certain. This mysterious skeleton has opened up more questions than answers about what truly lies in the uncharted depths of our oceans. Is this proof of a mythical deep-sea predator, or just another unexplained anomaly? Only time will tell. Number 15. Rare sea angel spotted off Russian coast. Russian divers discovered a naked sea butterfly swimming in the cold White Sea. As it glides through the freezing water, the dreamlike sea creature, with its delicate wings and brilliant colors, appears almost animated. The zooplankton mollusk, sometimes known as a sea angel, may be found in the Arctic Ocean and frigid parts of the North Atlantic Ocean, from the surface to a depth of more than 500 meters. Friedrich Martens described it in 1676, making it the first gymnosomatous heteropod to be described. Clyone limacina may be found in the Arctic Ocean and North Atlantic Ocean's frigid waters, reaching as far south as the Sargasso Sea. Adults feed almost exclusively on sea butterflies of the genus Limacina, namely Limacina helicina and Limacina retroversa, in a predator-prey interaction. The feeding behavior of Clyone limacina is rather unusual. 3 pairs of buccal cones make up the buccal apparatus. Limacina helicina's shell is grabbed by these tentacles. When the prey is in the proper position, with its shell opening facing Clyone limacina's radula, it uses its chitinous hooks, which are everted from hook sacs, to grip the prey. The body is then entirely extracted from its shell and swallowed whole. The life cycle of Clyone limacina in Svalbard appears to span at least 2 years. Planktonic feeders, such as baleen whales, prey on Clyone limacina. Number 14. Headless chicken monster. For the first time, camera equipment created by Australian researchers was used to photograph a deep-sea cucumber known as the headless chicken monster in the Southern Ocean. The monster was spotted off the coast of East Antarctica for the first time, and it is the first time the species has been sighted in the region. Enypnius seximia was previously only observed in the Gulf of Mexico and was recorded in the Southern Ocean with the vision-developed cameras. The data from the cameras will be presented during the annual conference of the Commission for the Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources, which begins in Hobart this week. The meeting's Australian commissioner will advocate for a new East Antarctic Marine Protected Area. The Southern Ocean is home to an incredible abundance and variety of marine life, including commercially sought-after species, the harvesting of which must be carefully managed for future generations, said Commissioner Gillian Slocum. Number 13. 26-foot-long sea worm discovered by divers off New Zealand coast. 2 divers spotted this enormous worm-like monster off the coast of New Zealand. The worm, which is around 26 feet in length, is considered to be a pyrosome, a warm-water creature. On October 25th, director Steve Hathaway was filming a tourism ad on an island off the coast of New Zealand when his friend Andrew Buttle summoned him to see something unusual. "You've got to be kidding me," Hathaway remarked after hearing what Buttle uncovered. He put on his scuba gear and dove in. It was a 26-foot-long translucent worm-like creature that looked like a giant windsock. He had been wanting to see a pyrosome for years, one large enough for him to swim across. What would normally cause most individuals to run from the water was soon recognized by the 2 divers as perfectly safe and, in fact, a rare event. Pyrosomes are planktonic, which implies that currents, tides, and waves in the oceans play a major role in their migration. Number 12. Giant underwater cave was hiding oldest human skeleton in the Americas. Divers are bringing a 12,000-year-old skull for 3D scanning inside a cave known as Hoyo Negro, or black hole in Spanish. The skull is one of the most ancient and complete skeletons ever discovered in the Americas. Fortunately for us, the journey was captured with a magnificent collection of photographs. The skeleton, which belonged to a 15 or 16-year-old girl dubbed Naya by experts, sheds light on a long-standing controversy about what early Americans looked like. Although Naya's narrow features and high forehead make her appear nothing like a Native American, her DNA markers show they are connected. The caves on the Yucatan Peninsula were most likely dry when she died at the end of the Ice Age. The caverns have been inundated by rising sea levels since. In 2007, divers uncovered Naya's bones, as well as those of extinct creatures such as saber-toothed cats and enormous ground sloths. After illegal divers entered the cave, her bones were relocated. While we'll never be able to visit the cave, we may marvel at these incredible underwater anthropological photographs. Number 11. The Ghost Fleet. This lagoon was home to Japan's Imperial Fleet during World War II, which was destroyed in the aftermath of Operation Hailstone, often known as Japan's Pearl Harbor. Hundreds of Japanese airplanes and other military vehicles remain at the lagoon's bottom today, making it one of the greatest World War II wreck diving sites in the world. In a surprise attack on the islands on February 17, 1944, 5 fleet carriers and 4 light carriers, as well as support ships and 500 aircraft, fell on the islands. The Japanese military had transferred extra ships to the region just a week before the raid, and as a result, about 250 Japanese planes were destroyed and more than 50 ships lost. In one ship alone, an estimated 400 Japanese soldiers were slaughtered when they were trapped in the cargo hold. The majority of the fleet remained in the same location where it was abandoned, completely forgotten by the rest of the world until the late 1960s. The wreck-littered lagoon was examined in Jacques Cousteau's 1969 film Lagoon of Lost Ships, and many of the sunken ships were still full of dead at the time. Japan initiated recovery operations when wreck divers attracted attention to the location, and several corpses have been recovered and returned to Japan for burial. However, a few remain. Number 10. USS President Coolidge. Espiritu Santo is well known across the world as a diving destination. The sinking of the SS President Coolidge is one of the main reasons behind this. This wreck is considered to be the world's largest and most accessible wreck and has been dubbed the world's greatest shore dive. The Dollar Steamship Company commissioned the SS President Coolidge and her sister ship, the SS President Hoover, in October 1929, at a cost of slightly over $7 million each. Grace Coolidge, the former president's wife, launched the President Coolidge on February 21, 1931. It was christened with a bottle of river water from the Black River, which ran through the ex-property president's land, rather than the traditional champagne, because prohibition was still in effect in the United States at the time. The SS President Coolidge was a luxurious ship that lived up to its name. The liner, together with its sister ship, was the biggest merchant ship ever built in the United States at the time. She was a monster, measuring 654 feet 3 inches long, 81 feet in beam, 34 feet in depth, and weighing 21,936 tons gross. It was built to carry 988 passengers with 385 crew members. No expense was spared in furnishing the interior, which was on par with the greatest hotels in the area at the time. The onboard entertainment was described as state-of-the-art, with 2 saltwater pools, a gym, a theater, a stock market, a beauty salon, and air conditioning throughout. The first-class cabins and many of the special-class cabins had telephones, and some even had en-suite toilet facilities. Number 9. Cenote Angelita Cave. An amazing subterranean flowing river lies beneath the Cenote Angelita Cave on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The presence of hydrogen sulfide causes this breathtaking natural phenomenon to occur. It is heavier than saline water and settles at the river's bottom, forming a separate layer, creating a true underwater river. The Cenote Angelita River, with its alternating layers of fresh and saline water, may reach depths of over 100 meters. The colorful foliage and branches of adjacent trees, which float barely along the river's banks due to the density of the water, add to the river's attractiveness. Cenote is a word that describes a cave with fresh water and is commonly used to characterize Dolin Karst, a sinking hole phenomenon seen across the world, particularly in Central America. The cenotes were important to the Mayans, who used them to perform religious ceremonies, such as brutal human sacrifices. It's not simple to get to this cave. For the first 20 meters, it is filled with pure water, but as it progresses, it becomes increasingly muddy. Because the cave dive extends as far as 55 meters below the surface, it is only recommended for extremely experienced divers. Number 8. The Christ Statue. The original cast of Guido Galletti's Christ of the Abyss submerged bronze statue of Jesus Christ is found in the Mediterranean Sea off San Fructuoso, between Camogli and Portofino on the Italian Riviera. Other casts of the statue can be seen in many sites across the world, including underwater locales, churches, and museums. In 1993, the original clay positive without the arms was discovered in a foundry. The arms were eventually discovered and reattached, but the hands had to be replaced. The reimagined clay sculpture is presently on exhibit in Ravenna, Italy's National Museum of Underwater Activities. On August 22, 1954, the original bronze statue was lowered into the Mediterranean Sea. Guido Galletti created it after a concept by Italian diving instructor Duilio Marcanti. The statue was erected at the site of Dario Gonzatti's death in 1947. He was the first Italian to utilize scuba equipment. With his head and palms stretched upward, Christ offers a benediction of peace. The statue was dedicated to Marcante's memory. The statue was taken from the sea and repaired in 2003 due to increased corrosion and the proliferation of crustaceans. The severance of a hand, apparently caused by an anchor, was also repaired. On July 17, 2004, the statue was returned to the sea with a new foundation. On the shore of St. George's, Granada, a second bronze sculpture, produced from the same mold as the first, was installed. It was a present from Genoa's navy in exchange for aid in saving the crew of the Italian vessel MV Bianca C, which had caught fire in the harbor of St. George's and had to be sunk on October 22, 1961. Number 7. MS Zenobia Ferry. The MS Zenobia was a Challenger-class Ro-Ro ferry built in Sweden that capsized and sank in the Mediterranean Sea near Larnaca, Cyprus, during her first trip in June 1980. She currently lies on her port side in roughly 138 feet of water, and has been declared one of the top 10 wreck diving sites in the world by The Times and many others. Zenobia overturned and sank in Larnaca Bay at 2:30 a.m. on June 7, 1980, taking with her an estimated 200 million pounds in cargo. There were no fatalities as a result of the incident. A Discovery Channel series looked into the possibility that Mossad and MI6 sabotaged Zenobia, which could have been carrying weapons to Syria. While the sister ship is still in service as of January 2021, the Seafront Saison was dismantled in October 2011. Scuba divers can find a variety of challenges at Zenobia, ranging from very basic dives to more intermediate dives inside the top car deck and accommodation block, and even more daring dives within the bottom car deck or engine room. Number 6. Giant Isopod. A new monster has been discovered off the coast of Indonesia by experts. A new species of supergiant isopod, a massive marine cousin of the ordinary pillbug. It was discovered during the South Java Deep Sea Biodiversity Expedition in 2018. The finding was named Bathynomus roxasa, a 36.3 centimeter male specimen that serves as the basis for the description and naming of the new species. Unlike most isopods that scavenge decaying organic matter, researchers suspect this species might have adapted to target more specific food sources in its deep sea habitat. The deep sea, with its high pressure, low temperature, and limited food supply, has led to the evolution of these unusual traits. Interestingly, the isopod's exoskeleton also displayed bioluminescent-like properties, hinting at its role in camouflage or communication. In comparison to the nearest known species, Bathynomus giganteus, researchers noticed smoother skin and distinct body proportions and morphologies, in addition to being larger on average. The find is an example of deep-sea gigantism, a phenomenon in which certain deep-sea animals grow considerably larger than their cousins in shallower seas or on land. The majority of isopods are under 10 millimeters in length. Number 5. The Antikythera mechanism. An archaeologist was sorting through artifacts recovered from a 2,000-year-old shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera, a century and a half ago. Among the wreckage, which included exquisite vases, pots, jewels, and a bronze figure of an old philosopher, was a system of brass gears and dials encased in a box the size of a mantel clock. The Antikythera mechanism was the name given to the instrument by archaeologists. At first glance, the brass artifact found near the disaster seemed like something you'd find in a junkyard or on the wall of a dive bar with nautical decor. The mechanism is now a collection of rusty brass gears wedged between two decaying wooden boxes. However, a closer inspection revealed at least 24 gears perfectly stacked on top of one another and tuned with the accuracy of a Swiss watch. Archaeologists would generally date this type of technology to the 16th century, not much earlier. But there was one pressing question: what was the purpose of this contraption? The mechanism was instantly recognized by archaeologists as being some type of clock, calendar, or calculating instrument, though they didn't know which. They argued for decades whether the Antikythera was a miniature model of the planets or an early astrolabe. Derek J. de Sola Price, a Princeton science historian, published the first comprehensive scientific examination of the contraption in 1959. He determined that the mechanism was used to forecast the location of the planets and stars in the sky based on the calendar month. After a detailed examination of the gears, the calendar year was represented by a primary gear, which then moved several smaller gears to depict the motions of the planets, sun, and moon. Number 4. The Lost City of Heracleon. The city of Thonis Heracleon remained hidden for thousands of years, sunk deep beneath the water, as shown by a few rare inscriptions and old manuscripts. After scanning a large region of the Abukir Bay off the coast of Egypt for years, French archaeologist Frank Gaudio and his colleagues discovered a massive face emerging from the murky shallows. Thonis Heracleon, located 6.5 kilometers off the shore of Alexandria, was finally uncovered by Gaudio. The site revealed a treasure trove of submerged ruins, including 64 ships, 700 anchors, a hoard of gold coins, 16-foot-tall sculptures, the remnants of a large temple dedicated to the deity Ammonius Jerub, and small sarcophagi for animals brought as sacrifices. The granite and diorite remains and artifacts were exceptionally well preserved, providing a glimpse into what was once one of the world's major port towns 2,300 years ago. All traffic into Egypt was regulated by the harbor of Thonis Heracleon, known by its Egyptian and Greek names. The city was crisscrossed with canals, a kind of ancient Egyptian Venice, and its islands were home to tiny sanctuaries and dwellings, all built around its main temple. The history of this once grand city is virtually unknown today, and no one knows how it came to be completely submerged. Number 3. Apollo rocket engines. Not long after James Cameron's deep-sea expedition, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon and a space entrepreneur, revealed his own ambition to explore the depths. Bezos aimed to retrieve the F-1 engines that propelled the Apollo 11 moon landing mission into orbit on the Saturn V rocket. On his website, he announced that his crew had successfully recovered the engines. The engines were discovered 14,000 feet below the ocean surface off the coast of Florida. The recovery process involved advanced robotic technology, including remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, equipped with precision tools to carefully handle the fragile artifacts. The team faced significant challenges, including extreme pressures at those depths and limited visibility in the pitch-black waters. Despite these obstacles, the intricate operation spanned several weeks, with meticulous planning to ensure the engines were brought up intact. Expelled from the Saturn V rocket as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin rocketed into space, the engines remain NASA property. After Bezos hands them over, he hopes to see them displayed in a Seattle museum. He envisions the final display showcasing the engines with their naturally worn appearance, hardware that rested on the bottom of the ocean for decades after plunging from the sky at 5,000 miles per hour. While the components are being repaired to prevent further corrosion, they will be joined together for display. Number 2. Christmas tree worm. Scientists discovered this unusual yet lovely deep-sea creature near Lizard Island on the Great Barrier Reef. Despite its name, which comes from its triangular plumes, this beautiful creature would look fantastic on any Christmas tree, though it prefers a coral one. Did you know that a Christmas tree worm is a real organism that lives in the ocean? The Christmas tree worm was first discovered in 1766 by scientists. Its stunning treetop crown is available in a variety of hues, but it is always symmetrical. These crowns are actually specialized structures called radioliths, which help the worm filter feed by catching plankton and other tiny particles from the water. The worm's body itself is hidden inside a calcium carbonate tube, which it builds within coral reefs. Interestingly, these worms can retract their crowns quickly if they sense danger, disappearing into their protective tube in the blink of an eye. Christmas tree worms also play an important role in their ecosystem by contributing to coral health through their filter feeding habits. Their vivid colors and delicate patterns make them a favorite subject for underwater photographers and divers exploring coral reefs. Even more intriguing, the only part visible is the worm's crown, which is shaped like a miniature Christmas tree. Christmas tree worms aren't very large. In reality, they're just about 1.5 inches long on average. However, as I'm sure you'll agree, they know how to put on an incredible show of color. Number 1. Titanic. The Titanic was long considered to have sunk intact, and various attempts to raise the wreckage were proposed over the years. None of the plans came to fruition due to the sheer difficulty of locating and accessing a disaster site more than 12,000 feet below the surface, under water pressure exceeding 6,500 pounds per square inch. Several expeditions searched for the Titanic, but it wasn't until September 1, 1985, that a Franco-American mission led by Jean-Louis Michel and Robert Ballard succeeded. The Titanic had torn apart, most likely at or near the surface, before sinking to the bottom. The wreck was found in Titanic Canyon, off the coast of Newfoundland. The separated bow and stern sections are roughly a third of a mile apart. They lie about 715 miles from Halifax and 1,250 miles from New York, positioned 13.2 miles from the incorrect coordinates provided by Titanic's radio operators on the night of the disaster. Both sections collided with the seabed at high speeds, causing the bow to crumple and the stern to collapse completely. The bow is the most well-preserved portion, with some surprisingly intact interiors, while the stern is extensively damaged. Its decks have collapsed, and most of the hull plates have been torn off and scattered across the seabed. Since its discovery, the Titanic wreck has been visited by explorers, scientists, filmmakers, tourists, and salvagers who have retrieved thousands of artifacts for conservation and public display. Which of these places would you love to dive into? What's the scariest thing you've ever seen underwater? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the other cool videos on the screen, and I'll see you next time.